Hi everyone!
Hi guys! Thanks for joining us.
We are live at the USU Botanical Center.
Yes,
it is
we are.
A gorgeous day.
Finally!
After all of that rain.
Oh, it's been raining so much.
Even last night, did you guys get rain up here?
Yeah, we did. We got intense winds and crazy rain, lightning,
thunder. Yeah.
I was watching the clouds move in, and we had a great horned owl sitting right outside our window, and he took off, and I was like, we're in for it. We are so in for it. So
yes,
yeah.
But the sky's blue. It's gorgeous. It's finally nice enough we can get out into the gardens today.
Yes, and I'm really excited that we've been able to be outside today. I told
know.
Marta I'm not like dressed really cute because I've been outside all day. It's sunny.
Yes, and it's almost dry.
Almost.
So we're coming up on June.
Yes.
June starts tomorrow.
Yep.
And I was looking over our June to-do list that Extension has put out. It's called our Gardener's Almanac. And one of the things on the to-do list is thin your fruit trees.
Thin your fruit trees. It's really important to do if you want good fruit. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today.
So we're here in the orchards. And tell us what kind of fruits. Is it only fruit trees? Tell us what we're thinning.
Oh, so today we're going to focus on apples, and I'm going to show you pears, and I'm also going to show you peaches. So we're going to do a stone fruit, and then the apple and pear thing, because the pears are just slightly different from the apples. But all the stone fruits kind of fall under the same rules.
Okay.
So
cherries, do you thin cherries?
You really don't thin cherries by hand this way. I mean, you could, but
that
would take a lot of time.
Because they're little.
And you would have a degree of insanity. But if you wanted to, you could. The things that we mostly thin are peaches. And peaches are the one that, people want great, big, giant, juicy peaches, and you don't get them unless you thin. So this is a really important topic for good fruit production.
Right.
So.
And it's hard because you look at these trees and they're just laden with fruit. Let's see if we can show that.
See that.
And you think, well, if I pick half these off, then I'll have half as much fruit.
Right. It's a hard thing. It's a really hard thing. The first time I thinned a peach tree, I kind of had to freak out. But then when I saw the result and why it was important, then I was okay with it. And we have a extension research farm here at Kaysville also, and I worked there for a number of years before I worked for Davis County Extension, and we would hire teenagers and kids to come after school and to thin for us. And if I didn't hear the fruit plinking the ladder from being thinned, then they weren't thinning hard enough. So it got to the point where that sound is the best sound for me, because I know that means we're going to get great fruit.
Well, and what is that saying? Like, do you want 50 peaches as, this big, or 25?
And we usually say on a mature tree for peaches, you want to leave about 100 to 150 fruit. So you're
like
still
a large
tree. Yeah, you're still going to get some fruit. And this is an apricot. We should say that before we
continue
get ourselves
talking
in
about
trouble.
Peaches.
This right here behind us is an apricot. And you can see, like, this branch is supposed to be up here, and it's so laden with fruit. We actually are getting apricots this year, which in Utah we say it's like 1 every 5 years we get apricots. They bloom so early, and then we freeze, and then we don't get apricots. So, but this year we're gonna. So I know a lot of people are excited, but I mean, look how heavy that branch is, and it's just weighed down with the fruit. And this is when our branches break, especially if we have winds like we had last night, with this heavy fruit. In the sad weather.
As the fruit gets bigger. I had a friend lose her whole tree last year. It was really sad.
Yeah.
Well, because it was a tiny little new tree.
Right. And it's a really big problem on peaches. Not so much apricots. I mean, they do get heavy, but I mean, the fruit is much smaller. And, there's some other reasons why we would want to thin these out. I mean, they're so tight in here. I don't know if you can see this. They're so tight. They look like, muscles on the side of a boat. But we're
like
get,
grapes, like a cluster of grapes.
We're gonna get weird formed fruit. It's gonna be a little bit odd shaped. I mean, we can get some insects down in between here.
I'm actually gonna flip the camera around so we can get a better angle of Sheriden doing
Go right
this.
Ahead.
We'll give you a little view
of
what
we're doing.
There's the pretty orchard.
There's the orchard. So if you can see here, I've got this huge cluster of fruit, and I'm gonna thin this off. And the stone fruits are really easy to thin. You just kind of twist. So I'll do this kind of slow motion so you can see it. So it kind of just twists and it pops right off. But we want to make sure that none of these are really touching. If you were going to thin your apricots because you wanted great big apricots, we would thin it out so that not a lot of the fruit is like right next to each other. It's not touching. It's kind of spread out, and these fruit have room to grow. So that's kind of what we're after there.
Okay, so
weird stuff there.
you removed most of the fruit from there.
I removed a lot, and stone fruit are really good at producing a lot of fruit. They have the genetics to just put on fruit blossoms and fruit buds. So they're going to always put on way more than you need. So
you probably removed 12 to 15.
Yeah, I probably removed, and I left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 7 right there in that little cluster, that tiny cluster. I mean, that's not bad. I'm going to get some really nice apricots there.
And there's more along that whole branch.
There are. They're all the way down the branch.
But that branch was, it was probably 10 inches away from the ground, and now it's about waist level.
A bit. So you can see what it does. You can see that it does help. I've got some other fruit back here. And when I thin, I always start with the smallest fruit. I'm going to take the smallest fruit off the branch, and I'm going to leave the biggest fruit there, because that's going to give me potentially. And then I've got, a couple other good-sized ones, and I've got 2 that are a little bit smaller.
Well, will you show one of the tiny ones you pulled off, just to show the size difference?
So here you go. There's the size difference. I want to keep the big stuff because I want big, juicy fruit.
So those of you tuned in, if you have questions about thinning fruit trees, we'd love to answer your question.
We would. So type in the comments your questions. We'll talk to you about thinning today specifically. We do have some other things to announce today too that's related to fruit. So we have a fruit and a nut class that's an online class, right, Marta?
That's right.
And it is on sale today, which is kind of fun. So instead of $25, it's $20. Where do they go to sign up for that, Marta?
We will share a link in the comments. I will pop that in as soon as we wrap up here. You can find it if you go to extension.usu.edu. There's a link on the sidebar for online courses, but I will make sure that we get a link for that.
Yeah, that's a really good course to take if you're interested in growing fruit and nuts. It's very comprehensive, and we'll talk to you all about growing all the different types of fruits and nuts. So, great thing. We have another class that's launching today. It's a brand new class.
Woohoo.
We should probably mention it before we move on. So it's a container vegetable gardening class, and it's kind of exciting for me because I put that one together. So we do have that class launching today, and you can find that at the same
place.
Yeah, in the same place.
Now, we have a discount code just especially for you viewers of our live video. So if you want the discount on the container vegetable gardening, just type in the comments, I want the discount, and we will send that coupon code to you.
Which would be awesome, and we would love to have you take it. So let's move on from apricots, and let's just show a peach really quick, because it's the same kind of concept. Let's just go right over here to this tree. Same kind of concept, but you can see the fruit's a little bit different sized, and we say that we want to thin these peaches when they're about quarter size. So we're there. These peaches are ready to be thinned. It's usually about 30 days after we have petal fall.
Sorry guys, I'm trying to adjust the microphone. That was my hand.
Sorry, technical difficulties. So when we have bloom, we have all those pretty blossoms on the tree, and then the petals eventually start to fall off, and that's what we call petal fall. So about 30 days-ish after is when we are going to start thinning the fruit. And you can see I kind of have the same problem as the apricot. I've got these fruit just clumped in clusters. I don't need this many fruit. I mean, if I leave all of these here, let's see how many we've got just right here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Just right here. I've got 14 fruit, and I've got a lot more up above it. I don't want 14 tiny peaches. I want 14 really good sized peaches. So, same deal. I mean, you can twist. There's another method that I use too. I just use my thumbs, and I was taught this by a really good orchardist. He's excellent. His name is Thor, of all names. So he taught me how to do this. So you just use your thumbs, and you just push the fruit up and back, and that helps it to be released. And so you can do it pretty quickly. I want to leave a fruit about every 6 to 8 inches on a peach. So see, I've got 2 here. I really can't support this. Think of how big these are going to get and how heavy they're going to be on the tree. If I leave all of that on the tree that was there, it's going to be so weighed down and so heavy, and I'm going to break branches. I'm going to mar my fruit. I won't have, really nice looking fruit. So it's better to thin and take these off and make sure that you are able to support the fruit on that branch. So that one had like 6 on it. I'm just going to leave 1 because think of the size of that. Think of how big that's going to be on that tiny branch. So same deal. This is kind of fun for kids to do if you're looking for a way to get your kids out in the garden and you have fruit trees. They love to do this. And they'll throw them at each other, but they'll have a really good time.
So you're just letting those drop to the ground.
I am.
Is that okay? Do
It
we need
is.
to be collecting them?
It's fine. I mean, if you've had problems with fungal pathogens, Carinian blight, anything like powdery mildew, and you want to make sure that you are very sanitary, you can come back through and pick it up. In this orchard, I don't worry about being so sanitary right here. If I was at home, it would bug me, and I would go pick it up.
To have that fruit litter.
Yeah. So, but you can have, that's another good job for kids, have them come clean up.
Yeah, I was thinking, my 3-year-old, I probably would not trust to thin, but he could pick them up off the ground.
He could totally pick them up and put them in a bucket.
Pay him a penny.
Yep, penny per, or, you know, come up with a number, like for every 50, I'll give you, you know, 50 cents or something, you know, just so that kind of gets him going and thinking about filling the bucket. Sometimes I don't do it piece by piece. I tell him when the bucket's full, Mom will give you $5. And that seems to work really well.
That.
All about getting kids to work. So this is a lot thinner. It's got a lot less fruit on it now. And you can see it's kind of up a little bit further than it was. And you will do the whole tree, and it will take a little bit of time, but it's actually kind of like meditative, like relaxing, just kind of easy to do. Just out here talking to the tree. If you're crazy like me and you want to talk to trees, this is how to do it. So
Mary and Carol both want the discount.
Awesome! We would love to have you take the class. So with the container vegetable gardening class, it's something that I see becoming more and more needed in our community, because we're kind of running out of space, and instead of going out, we're starting to go up with our building, and so people don't have the yard space that they used to have many years ago. So I can see people needing to know how to vegetable garden in these containers. So I would love for people to take it. It's really kind of fun.
Awesome class. So again, if you want the discount code for that, just type "I want the discount" in the comments, and we will send that to you.
Fantastic.
So we've got 9 of you watching our thinning video. Should we move on to the next tree?
Yeah. So let's do apples next.
I would love to know where you're tuning in from and what fruits you have growing in your garden.
So we're going to go over here 2 rows. A little bit of a walk. And here we have an apple tree that is loaded. We have seen some problems this year with pollination because it was so wet and the bees just couldn't fly. So I'm seeing people with a little less apple yield or apple crop on their trees. So it's okay if your tree isn't loaded this heavy. For some reason this one is this year. And sometimes people have biennial bearing trees where they will bear alternatively, is kind of what we say. So they'll bear heavy one year and then maybe not at all the next year. Thinning is a great way to deal with that. So trees have hormones just like people. They're a little bit different hormones, but trees are kind of raging hormones. So the hormones tell them to do all kinds of things, and in these little tiny apples are seeds, and in those seeds a hormone is produced that sends a signal back to the tree. And when there's this many apples on the tree, it tells the tree this summer, when it starts to form blossom for next year, you don't need to form flower blossoms. You just need to form leaf blossoms. And so next year we won't have a crop. So if we'll thin it before the seeds harden, we can really, really help ourselves.
How do you know when the seeds harden?
So you can cut one of these open. We can do that right now. You just slice into one of these little things. And if you see brown seeds when you slice in here, they've hardened, they've kind of ripened. You can see this one right here has a little white seeds. Can you see it?
Get in there.
Little white seeds. So we're still in time. We haven't reached that age of maturity where it's sending a hormone signal back to the tree.
Okay.
So we're in time. And that's that 30 days kind of after blossom area that you want to be in.
Okay. So Mary says she has peach and pear. Darcy
Great.
has 2 peach, a pear, and 3 apple. Fairly young trees. Peaches in their 2nd year of producing. Yay!
Yay! I love it when they start to produce. That just makes you happy. Okay, so when apples bloom, this is really important when you thin. They will bloom in clusters, and you'll notice these clusters of blossoms. And in the middle, there's the blossom that opens first. That one's called the king blossom, and it will create what's called the king fruit. Look at the size difference. It's gigantic. That's because the tree put the most resources and the most carbohydrates into that middle blossom.
That's so interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
I had no idea.
So yeah, fruit trees are awesome. My master's degree is in, I focused on fruit trees. So
it's your thing.
It's one of my things. I love fruits and veggies. Anything we can eat, I'm happy with. So when we thin this, we are going to take off everything but the king. We just want one apple right here, and you can pull them off like that, or you can get yourself some handy dandy scissors if you're worried about damaging the spurs that the fruit are on, and you can just cut them off. And then we're going to just leave that one large apple. Other thing this helps with, besides fruit size and the alternative bearing on the alternate years, is it helps with coddling moth. Have you ever had wormy apples? If the apples grow up and they're touching each other, the worms tend to enter the apples right where they're touching each other.
It goes from apple to apple?
It goes from apple to apple. So if you will do this, this will help. It's not going to completely prevent it. There's some other things you have to do. There are sprays that you have to use, and there's spray timing. So coddling moth develops based on temperature.
Okay.
So the higher the temperature is, the faster the development. And they run on what's called degree days. And so you can look up our spray date timings. If you type in USU fruit spray date timings, it will pop up a whole list, and you can look at your county because it's so specific by temperature, and you can see when you have to start spraying for coddling moth. So
I love this technique that you just showed us because it's so straightforward. There's no guesswork.
It is. It's really easy to do. It tells you, keep me, I'm the biggest. Yeah, and you can just, oops, I got the wrong one. That happens sometimes. That's okay. And you can just sit out here and snip away, and you can really help your production in the tree. So that's apples. Pretty simple. Apples do fruit on these things called spurs. So you can see this is the spur, and it's on 2-year-old and older wood. So these spurs have to be 2 years old before it will produce the apple. So the spurs are really kind of delicate. We don't want to damage them at all. So, scissors,
next year as well.
Scissors are great. Yes, they will produce next year. And see, I got this one. So I'm not going to have a fruit there next year because I was in a hurry. So, so yeah, just be really careful. The apples are pretty easy to thin. And sometimes they'll kind of self-thin a little bit. You'll see some that are kind of falling off. Either they didn't get pollinated. Sometimes we have this thing called June drop, where the trees will drop a little bit of fruit right at the beginning of June, just because they can't support all that fruit, or it didn't get pollinated right.
Can you prevent that with thinning?
No, not really. It's kind of a natural thing. But yeah, just taking good care of your trees and keeping them as stress-free as possible, and making sure they have the water and the fertilization that they need really does help with that.
We've got a couple of comments.
Great.
Kirk says, every year his parents get a nice harvest of apples along with a nice crop of worms.
Spray dates, Kirk, spray dates.
And that's one thing,
you can always eat around a worm.
You have to think about. If you want to have nice fruit, you do have to.
You do. There are some things you have to do.
Control.
And, coddling moth, I believe there are some organic options, and you can always eat around a worm. But if you have a tree that is hosting coddling moth, you're spreading it to all your neighbors, and that's not nice either. So do take care of your trees.
Yeah.
They'll thank you in the long run.
Yeah. Okay, Karen says, I have 2 Honeycrisps, and one has had apples for 5 years, and the other has never had apples.
That would be a Honeycrisp. They're terrible. They're the best apple. They taste so amazing, but sometimes they just won't produce fruit. They're really difficult sometimes, and we find with Honeycrisps that that can happen. You'll have this tree that's just a dud.
Is that why they're so expensive? Is because they're really hard to grow?
Maybe. I think they're mostly expensive because people like them, and you can get a premium price for them. But yeah, maybe take it out and try a different tree. I know that's kind of heartbreaking, but trees are grafted, so they reach maturity pretty quick. You won't have apples that first year, but you could potentially have apples the second year. So.
Well, in the orchard here, all the trees are labeled. If you want to see different varieties and how they look in the orchard.
How they look, how they grow. And this is a tasting orchard, so you can come and you can taste throughout the season. We do donate our produce, so we do ask that you only taste and don't strip trees. We've had our trees stripped before, and then we can't donate to the food banks and the people in need. We have a lot of people in Davis County that are food insecure, that really rely on the produce produced here. So last year we donated over 4,000 pounds of produce, so that's
so
great.
Awesome.
So
okay, so
all right, should we do pears? We have
Let's
to
do
walk
pears.
back again. I'm sorry, guys. You have to get a view of the orchard while we walk. We'll go straight through here. So a little bumpy. Watch out for sprinklers. Those sprinklers will get you there. Okay, so the pears are really similar to apples, but just barely different. So you can see I've got a cluster of pears here. And pears open a little different than apples. Instead of that king flower or that king blossom, they open from the bottom to the top. So it may not be quite as straightforward. They're a lot easier to pull off the tree than the apples. They just pop right off.
And you're not damaging that spur.
I don't even need to, get out my clippers on this one. But and the spurs can be a little bit different. They can be a little bit larger and kind of funky shaped. So sometimes we have spurs that are called bors spurs, which in Russian means purse. They kind of look like a package. So I'm just going to leave one per cluster is kind of what I'm after.
And are you just picking the ones the biggest ones to keep?
I'm going to keep the largest ones, but it's not going to be quite as straightforward as those apples. You can see that as they opened, so this one opened first, and then these ones kind of subsequently opened. So just keeping that larger one. These two probably opened really close to the same time. And then keep the larger. Yeah, that one's just slightly larger. And just thinning out, because we can have some of the same problems on pears. We want to make sure that the fruit is nice and spaced. So and you can see I don't have the crop load on this pear that I do on the apple, but we can have some pretty heavy crop loads on pears. And your trees can get pretty heavily laden and weighed down. So it's pretty easy, pretty straightforward.
Now, when we first walked into the orchard, you said that there's been some uneven pollination this year.
There has, yeah.
So have any of you seen trees in your yard that normally produce fruit and haven't had any fruit this year?
We've had a couple people come into our diagnostic clinic with that problem, where it's just been too wet for bees to fly. They haven't seen bees on the trees, and that's just because of our weather has been terrible. I mean, good, but terrible.
Good for some things.
I know, good for water, which I'm so grateful for, because last year that was my swan song was, please don't use water. And this year it's going to be the same. Be careful with the water you use, but yeah.
But not as desperate.
Mm-hmm.
Emily says, are there any dwarf tree varieties I could grow in a large pot? We can't plant any trees since we live in an HOA.
Okay, so yeah, there are dwarf varieties. So you need to get a true dwarf. And the great thing about things like apples is that there's a rootstock that controls the size of the tree. So you're going to look for a dwarfing rootstock, and then you can pick whatever you want on the top of the tree. So if you're after a pink lady, which is a little late, or a golden delicious, or whatever you're after, that Honeycrisp, if that's the apple for you, you can get it grafted onto that rootstock. So you just need to look for a true dwarf tree. When you go to the nursery, make sure that you tell them that's what you're after and have somebody help you. I wouldn't recommend going to the box stores for these types of trees because they usually don't know what kind of rootstocks the trees are on.
And how large a pot do you need to grow a fruit tree?
You need a good sized pot. So we're talking, when you go to the nursery,
do that again,
and you pick out the pot, we're talking something like this that's fairly deep, probably would hold quite a bit of soil. And that tree will need to be staked. Dwarf trees don't put on enough woody growth to support themselves and hold the weight of the fruit. So you will need to put a stake in the pot and help support the tree.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Emily, if you're interested in container gardening, I don't know if you heard, we have a brand new container vegetable gardening course.
We do.
We're exclusively giving you guys watching a discount. So if you want the discount on that course, that online course taught by our lovely Sheriden,
yay!
Just type I want the discount in the comments. We'll send that discount code to you.
Yeah, and I would love to have you take it. It's a fun class, I think, and I show you how to pot up an herb planter at the end, and we do beets and Swiss chard, and we go through all the ins and outs, because container gardens are so different than just in-ground gardening, just so different. You're in charge of all the things that come in and out of that container, so we have to teach you a few things.
Okay, so we've covered apricots, peaches, apples, and pears.
Yes, we have.
Any more questions on thinning?
So I know that a lot of people have plum trees, so those are going to be really similar to the peaches and the apricot. It's a stone fruit, so same deal. Just get those thumbs going and plink, plink, plink. Take them off the tree. A fruit about every 6 to 8 inches. So
okay.
That's the question I'm thinking I will get.
All right.
All right.
Well, thanks so much, Sheriden, for showing us around the orchard today.
Happy to. It's one of my favorite places, so please come visit.
All right, and we'll see you all next time.
Yep.
Happy gardening.
Happy gardening.